University student athletes should not be paid for their participation in athletics. The idea that student athletes should be paid has long been discussed and debated over, and now it seems like everyone has their own opinion on this matter. Christopher Parent's 2004 article, Forward Progress, is a very popular article for being on the side of paying student athletes, but there are many things about this article that stick out to me. The article really only discusses men's football and basketball programs, and in greater detail, it only talks about 4 different universities with these programs. People who argue in favor of paying athletes will always turn right to the college football and college basketball markets and bring up how much money they make for their schools and for the NCAA. But in reality, most of these schools have athletics as a way to advertise their university and to attract new students. Fairfield is one of these schools. If only the select football and basketball powerhouse programs athletes got paid, then student athletes from around the country, and not just student athletes, but people from around the country would protest the NCAA. And if every student athlete got paid, a lot of schools would be forced to cut programs to be able to afford this. I feel as if the vast majority of universities that have athletics under the NCAA would be forced to cut some of their programs just because paying student athletes would cost so much money, going into how much these athletic departments already have to pay to support these athletics programs. Lee Hadaway's 2016 article, Why College Athletes Should Not Be Paid, she states that paying student athletes would be completely unfair. She believes that all those in favor of paying student athletes try to convince others that the NCAA is corrupt, and they do this by showing how much revenue events like March Madness bring in. Also, other events like the college football championship and stuff like that, they bring in huge amounts of revenue to the NCAA and to their universities. In Ikao Yanka's 2015 article, Why NCAA Athletes Should Not Be Paid, he says that the drive to pay college athletes is a grave mistake, not because it misdiagnoses the disease, but because it suggests that the only cure is to put the patient out of his misery. He thinks that by giving these students from big football and basketball programs income, we're further steering them away from the classroom and from education, even when a great majority of these student athletes will not go pro and make any real money playing their sport. These students are already being placed in classes that basically hand them free grades without even doing an ounce of work for themselves. And then after 4 years of college, they're just thrown out into the real world without any skills that have them be prepared for the workforce or even have the ability to land a job. They haven't gained any knowledge from their 4 years of college because of the way that these programs treat their student athletes. I myself am currently a student athlete, and I have long been on the side of not paying student athletes. I know that might seem funny, but that is because I have a strong belief for this idea that it's just not possible to pay student athletes and that we already receive so much in return for what we do for our universities. I believe that there's really just one simple response to this argument, and is that you cannot pay one group of student athletes that happen to garner the most popularity. So if the NCAA is really going to require payment for student athletes, it has to be done for all student athletes, men and women alike. You cannot discriminate us based on our programs, our type of sport, if we're men or women, any of that. We're all putting in the same amount of hours and the same grueling physical work and should not be compensated differently. There are only a finite number of schools in this country that even profit off of having athletics, and even less would be able to afford paying all of their student athletes. and that is why student athletes should not be paid.